the key part of leadership is really this child's mind of almost, and I think when you think of mindfulness, there's this thought of non-judgment, of really trying to be in a non-judgmental place. And that really is the challenge for a leader, is how do you remain directive, but remain open and unbiased?
Hello and welcome back to the Outdoor Minimalist podcast. I'm your host, Meg Carney, and I'm an outdoor and environmental writer and author of the book, Outdoor Minimalist, Waste Less Hiking, Camping, and Backpacking. The Outdoor Minimalist podcast has the goal to give listeners actionable ways to waste less hiking, camping, backpacking, and more during every step of their process. Your impact outdoors starts long before you hit the trail and goes beyond leave no trace ethics. You'll learn how to identify sustainable outdoor brands, how to ask hard questions regarding sustainability, and begin to shift and evolve your mindset to integrate minimalism into all of your outdoor pursuits. In episode 133 of the Outdoor Minimalist podcast, we explore a root concept of minimalism: mindfulness. I wanted to explore more topics regarding mindfulness on the show, so when I learned about Manduka's company story and their dedication to bringing mindfulness to the masses, I knew that I had to learn more. Joining me in today's conversation, I had the pleasure of learning from the CEO of Manduka, Pamela Levine. Pamela has always had a knack for carving her own path. Whether serving as a collegiate athlete, coaching youth sports, or leading women's Title IX sports initiatives, Levine has exhibited a natural leadership mentality from a young age. Throughout her career, Pamela's unwavering passion for fitness and wellness, combined with her athlete mentality, has guided her path of service across executive teams at top-tier brands in the outdoor and wellness industries. With her extensive experience and passion for wellness, Pamela found her calling at Manduka, the leading brand for yoga mats, accessories, and apparel. Returning as CEO after a 5-year hiatus, she leads the charge in championing Manduka's singular mission to inspire the practice of yoga. She focuses on providing high-quality, sustainable products and community resources to a diverse and growing customer base. Whether they're beginners or advanced practitioners, Levine is dedicated to ensuring everyone can find a place of mindfulness to enrich their lives and communities daily. So thank you for joining me on the Outdoor Minimalist podcast today, Pamela. I have really been wanting to explore more mindfulness ideas and concepts on the show. So I was really excited to be connected with you finally, but I guess to kind of get started and to get a deeper introduction to who you are and the things you're passionate about. Do you mind starting by just telling us a little bit about how you got interested in mindfulness as a practice and how it fits into your life now?
Yes, thank you. It's nice to meet you. So I'm Pamela Levine and I'm CEO of Manduka, but I ended up in a yoga company unbeknownst to me 20 years ago. I got introduced to yoga, which I think when I think of mindfulness really is a synonym for it. And I got introduced by a neighbor and she brought me to a hot yoga class, my first yoga class. And I was an athlete growing up, played tennis in college. And as soon as I went into this hot room, there was some sort of transformative experience. I was not experienced. And even today, I don't consider myself an experienced yogi. I just have done it for a long time and it's a continual practice. But that first moment felt something different between a mind-body connection that I hadn't experienced as an athlete. And it just felt like I was on the precipice of something different. And 20 years later, I'm still working on it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a continued practice, but it's great to have people to introduce you to those new things that
Exactly.
can become life-changing, I guess. So how did that inspire Manduka?
Well, Manduka was founded 27 years ago. I apologize. And it was founded by a gentleman named Peter Sterios, and he was a yoga teacher. And he had founded the product that's still our number one called the Black Mat. He was in Europe traveling and founded our product and was giving it out to teachers. And they were experiencing this transformative practice because the mat was so dense and it wasn't moving and it had tremendous cushion. And he knew that when you're practicing yoga, you really just need one tool. And it ended up being the Black Mat as we know it today. And my journey at Manduka um, was interesting because I got called about Manduka and I had never used a premium yoga mat. I had used a mat I got just at a local store and I didn't even understand that there was a quality that could elevate my practice. And as soon as I got introduced to one, I was like, oh my God, what is this? Wow, this is so amazing. And I think for me, because I had been on a yoga journey and it was part of what I did outside of playing beach volleyball or playing tennis, it became something that I was so passionate about getting this product in more hands. And that's how my yoga journey and Manduka came together. Yeah.
That's amazing. It's so interesting how sometimes you're introduced to one thing and then it just becomes your entire life.
Oh my gosh. And I look at it for me, Manduka is a proxy for how I really try to balance my life. I think the world has never felt more crazy for many people, but especially for myself. Obviously, in my career, as it's continued, just the pace of and all the present to be present for my staff. But also, I have aging parents, and so I've had changes in my family life, and we've experienced a loss this year that was really personal. And I think all of that just wraps up. Add COVID into that mix, and all of a sudden, you're just on a different path. And so, I just feel lucky that my work and my personal life can sync up and don't feel so separate.
Yeah, so how do you think with facing those challenges and kind of the overlap between your personal and professional life, how has a mindfulness practice kind of influenced juggling all of those different things?
And you said the word, it's a practice. I'll just say that. I would say that humbly, it continues to be a daily focus. Meditation is a place where, yoga is meditation. Meditation is yoga. I think all forms of yoga are meditation in motion or stillness. And for me, what I've really tried to do is create space for a deep breath and some sort of meditative practice, both through my workday and before and after. And that is the one through line that has kept it balanced. And like I said, it's a practice, but I will tell you when I do just promise myself to make a few minutes, I find myself through the day being much more conscious when I am overwhelmed and creating space for me to go offline for a minute to just collect myself. So that's probably the through line of both right now.
That makes sense. Do you think you would have specific examples, I guess, of kind of how those benefits have improved productivity and peace throughout the day or in your relationships?
Completely. I will say relationships is the best way to start. One of the things that I had a great yoga teacher, and a lot of, I think those of us that practice yoga, you're in meditation, either were introduced to somebody by somebody, and then you had a teacher that really made a great influence on you. And I had a meditation teacher who used to teach a practice of it called yoga nidra, which you really have to slow down and feel every piece of your body. And I could not do it, could not sit still. And what I found was that I modified it. I somehow it sunk in and I modified it. So when I wake up in the morning, I do this no more than 5-minute body scan. And I asked myself as if I was talking to a third party, like, how are you feeling? How does your arm feel? How does your hand feel? And that 5 minutes create such self-love. Well, what does that mean? It means that I'm just treating my loved ones so much more warmly. I'm feeling how they are feeling. I think when you're a leader, you have to give so much. And I think for times I might be depleted. And so when I give that to myself first, I find that even how I talk to my staff or when I'm in a sales meeting and I'm just showing love when we're facing momentum and when we have challenges. And that seems to create a much more enjoyable day. So that's the first thing I would say. And in terms of my productivity, I get much more disciplined about what I'm going to focus on. And I do find that I get distracted by a lot of small, and I have to remind myself 80-20 rule, 80-20 rule, 80-20 rule. And it's okay not to be perfect. And so that compassion for myself probably comes across in that execution.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, I think sometimes when people are thinking of mindfulness or like these types of practices, it can feel a little, it's overwhelming to like add an extra thing, and to have to spend 20, 30, 45 minutes to go to the yoga studio or something like that. But the fact that you can take like 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night, or something like that, it is definitely more approachable.
Yeah, and I think not so serious, right? I think when I was younger and I used to think of meditation, I had to sit cross-legged on the floor on a meditation cushion. And I don't know, but now I'm just like, I wake up, I look at my phone because most of us do. I remind myself to put it down and I just lie there and I do a 5-minute yoga nidra. That's a meditation. And I'm lying down. There doesn't need to be so serious. And sometimes I find myself doing it and right away I can't stop thinking. And I just laugh to myself, wow, you are so scattered and you just woke up. And so I laugh like, it's okay. Like, it's okay, Pam. Just take a deep breath. Let's focus on this meditation for maybe 2 minutes and then you can get up. And so again, that humor in it, I think is something also that Manduka, we try to have joy. The logo is a frog and everyone makes fun of me that I talk about the Manduka frog as like a living being, but he is, or for some reason it's a he to me. And yeah, I just try to have playful energy with it.
It makes a lot of sense that that would be kind of the energy in a yoga focused business. I would hope that
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the case. Um, but yeah, I think when people are in charge of groups or like running a program or a business or anything like that, there are a lot of pressures, and then that stress can kind of trickle down to other staff members and people that they interact with on a regular basis. So it is interesting how like one person's internal dialogue and energy can then kind of like influence everything around them.
So much. And what's interesting too is the challenge I have as a leader is there are times you do have to lead and be sharp in direction. And they're just moments that the group needs someone to call the shot and go. But a friend of mine reminds me the key part of leadership is really this child's mind of almost, and I think when you think of mindfulness, there's this thought of non-judgment, of really trying to be in a non-judgmental place. And that really is the challenge for a leader is how do you remain directive, but remain open and unbiased? That is something I'm trying to work on as I'm getting older.
Yeah. Have you found success in that journey?
I mean, I'm making progress. I will say I find that, when you're an athlete and you were a captain when you're younger, and so you're ready to go and you grow up and you think a leader's got to have a voice and people do want leadership. I mean, I do think people are looking for that. But I have found that it's actually a lot more fun and more flow state, if you will, as an athlete, when you're in that flow state, is when you are of a child's mind. It feels a lot less pressure to let it come to you and also let you observe and then use that information to align the team and move us forward rather than have to direct. And I do think, I'm 52 now. I think probably the last 12 months have been the most progress I've made. And I hope that's the beginning of a future path there.
Yeah, that would be great. I guess if you're looking back, yeah, looking back at your journey as a whole, I mean, I know that it's still continuing to evolve with
Yes.
time, but if you're looking back to kind of where you started when you were first introduced to these concepts, how has your approach shifted or changed through that time?
Great question. I would say the ability to combine my personal life and my work life has made everything so much more mindful and smooth. So I used to think in my work career when I was in my 30s, was probably an age where you start to find your career. For me, I did find I was at a company called Saucony, which was a running shoe company. I had a great mentor there. And I remember I was hard charging and I was wanted to be a leader and it just felt natural to me. And I remember he just wouldn't say much, but he would take it in. And when he did speak, it was every once in a while. But that he was so mindful in a meeting. His mind wasn't running. He was listening and much more observant. And I was much more ready to talk. And I think now I look back and I'm like, wow, I remember mirroring that and watching that and being like, there's something that he's able to get across that I'm not. And I do believe as I've gotten further in my yoga practice and actually taken the practice out of just asanas or hot yoga and more into meditation, yin, restorative, that's crossed over into my work. And so now I'm like, oh, I'm actually more quiet and observant and less worried about my verbal communication. And that has made me better. So I think that journey has changed a lot as my out of work yoga practice has evolved.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's an interesting observation, I think, just like kind of looking back on things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that obviously you have a huge passion and background in outdoor. I was most recently running a brand called Decline, which is one of the most renowned brands in action sports and an amazing brand full of quality. So many people that had built that business. I was just lucky enough to be part of it for a few years. And to watch the athletes backcountry snowboarding or skiing talk about having to be present. I mean, one move. And so I was watching them and observing them and humbly would never be able to be on a backcountry. I barely can get off a chairlift, but I would say that for me, the presence and the joy. So I also have taken a lot from the outdoor activities, mountain biking, another one. One move, you have to be so present and to be flow state, not to be too hard on the handlebars and just let it flow and let the kind of mountain go with the mountain. And I think watching those sports, surfing, another one at Takine. I was at Quicksilver for a long time, and the athletes that are in the water in the present and having tried surfing, you really can't concentrate on anything else. And so I think the action sports world and yoga, we just launched a collection today with Jerry Lopez, as we know him from the surfing world, such a legend, but an amazing human. You're in his presence and nothing else matters. And you can see why he was so exceptional in the water. That for me is such a muse. Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the relationship like between the flow state you would feel in a sport and then also like the flow of a yoga practice or mindfulness and kind of like the quietness of the mind, I guess, and the level of focus. So in that thought process, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this question, but I guess how can we better align with a flow state like in our daily life, I guess, because I think a lot of times we only find that when we are really immersed in something that we are passionate about or like we know that we enjoy.
It's the process, right? I mean, whether it's Kobe in basketball or, Kelly Slater on a surfboard or myself at work, it really is when you are less concerned about the outcome and more interested in the process. And that's the only thing I know for sure. And someone said to me, we were talking, oh, you know what it was? I was watching this interview, nothing, but this interview of Mark Cuban. And he was talking about how in the business world, it's a great, when you're older, it's kind of your version of being an athlete. And I was thinking about it and thinking, yeah, I see a lot of correlation. And for me, when people ask about Manduka, I just worry less about air quote competition, which I don't even think in yoga really is a good word because we work from this place of abundance that we all can be, rising tide lifts all ship. More people doing yoga is just a better world. But I really just worry about us and what's our process and how are we doing? And I think in the flow state, whether I'm playing tennis, which is pretty mental sport, and there were many times to be admitted where I was younger where I couldn't get in that flow state, Megan. And I think when I watched particularly action sports athletes, because the elements require it, it is a place where I find the most mindfulness and the most inspiration.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I have experienced similar. Yeah.
I agree. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I think when we're talking about these concepts, I maybe should have integrated this question like more towards the beginning, but hopefully people will be okay wrapping up in this capacity instead.
Yeah.
when we're talking about mindfulness, I think it can feel a little bit ambiguous. And it can be hard knowing where to start or how to approach it. And if you start to get distracted when you're trying to meditate, are you doing it wrong? You know, all those types of like second guessing things will come up, which is why it's important to practice. But how can like people approach it in a more like simplistic manner?
Yes. I would first say the one thing that everyone says to me when I meet them, if they're beginning, is I'm not a yogi, or I'm not good at yoga. And I'm like, what, I don't, that word doesn't mean anything in yoga because no one's good at yoga. Yoga is just a yoking of mind and body. And if we were perfect, we would be a guru, a teacher of sorts to it. I even think those that have a busy mind, or that are a teacher of sorts, still have a busy mind. No one is good at yoga. It is a practice. And I would say that the way that I talked about starting it is the way that someone that's been doing it for 20 years and someone that never tried it. My only comment is it takes a few tries. So you are going to go online and find a 5-minute meditation on YouTube, and that voice is not going to, you're going to be like, oh my God, this voice doesn't resonate. Turn it right off, move on. Go to a YouTube, go to a different YouTube, go to a local yoga class that's short, 30 minutes of your time. It is about the teacher. I'm telling everybody, the teacher is the game changer. Find a different voice, you have a different gender that feels great. You find a different environment that feels great, online, in person. You need to try 3 or 4 times. It's like when you go surfing and you go once, or snowboarding once, people say you have to go 2 or 3 times until it feels right. It's the same thing with yoga. And I just encourage people to just give it a few tries for 5 minutes, 20 minutes, or 30. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess learning to listen to that intuition and what your body's telling you while you're hearing that or in the class, and you're like, does this align with me? And if it doesn't, then maybe try a new approach, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Would you have maybe some specific resources that have worked really well for you, like an app or a specific YouTube channel that you're like, I really like this
Yes.
meditation
Yeah. I
teacher?
actually have a few. Okay. So there's a teacher in Reno, Nevada. She used to live in Los Angeles. She's an exceptional yoga teacher, especially for athletes. She's physical. Her name is Ann Spinner, Anne Spinner. You can go to YouTube, Ann Spinner Yoga. It's free. I think she just asks you to follow her, but she's amazing. And she's got some beginning flows. And she also has a couple meditations. And there's one I think I've taken all the time. It's 13 or 15 minutes and feels really easy and on ramping for that. There are online services, a couple of my buddies that are men, there's like Yoga for Men, literally, I think it's called that. There's a service, Yoga Glow. Again, I always go online, and I will say, not to pump it, but Manduka has classes. There's a Move with Manduka. Manduka has classes, meditation and flow. And we have a ton of content of how to take a 5-minute meditation. We have Instagram lives all the time. So I think at Manduka, we try not to make just great product, but also services so that you can have an entry path for that. So it just takes a few searches and you're going to find few options. Yes. Yoga with
Yeah.
Adriene, another good one. We've done a partnership with Yoga with Adriene. She has a lot of followers online, a lot of people on ramp with Yoga with Adriene. She's amazing.
Yeah, I think that is one channel that I have personally used before is Yoga with Adriene. She's
Yeah,
great.
she's great. She's great.
Very, very approachable. I did
Yeah.
not know that Manduka had resources and things like that, but I'll be sure to share all of the suggestions that you had, as well as some of Manduka's resources in the show notes so people can find that easily. But I guess to kind of close out the interview, are there any kind of like last things that you want to communicate or make sure that you share about your journey or Manduka in general?
Yes, I would say first for Manduka, all we care about is people getting on a yoga mat. And that could mean like a 2-minute meditation or a 60-minute flow. I think if you think you're not going to be good at yoga or stretching, that is the whole point to get on the mat. So when people say I'm not good at stretching, I wouldn't be good at yoga, that is the exact reason you need to try it. So please just do yourself and give yourself that love. We just say a world, more people doing yoga is a better world, whatever that looks like for you. And then for me, I just feel really humbled that I can improve myself with my job every day. And I think that I'm far from perfect. And so just even having an opportunity to talk to you just brings it forward. And every time we can talk more about it, just will probably create more harmony for me and those around in my community. So, yeah.
I love that. How can listeners learn more about Manduka and check out your website, socials, all that good stuff?
Yep. So you can follow us at Manduka Yoga. So Manduka, Manduka Yoga on social. That is, especially Instagram, is a great place. Manduka has a lot of content that's already in there, links to our products, obviously manduka.com, Manduka.com. And there's a community page, contents there, talks about our products, talks about our ethos. A big part of our ethos is soulfully engineered. So engineered product that you can't imagine you need. It'll really change your practice, but also with the earth and sustainability in mind. That's a big part of our ethos. And community is everything we stand for. So literally all we do is our work is to support teachers. So you'll find it all there.
Thank you for sharing that. I know, like I said about the other resources, I'll put that in the show notes so it is easy to access and find. But with that, Pamela, thank you so much for sharing a little bit more about your journey with mindfulness and the brand Manduka.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Megan.
Thanks for listening. And if you like what you hear, let me know. Leave a review and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find us on Instagram at outdoor.minimalist.book, on YouTube, or subscribe to our weekly newsletter at theoutdoorminimalist.com. For even more updates, other educational resources, and to help build an outdoor community with the shared goal to create a better outdoor space as we recreate.